Hello, welcome, everyone. Fantastic Friday wishes to you all. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Let's Talk on Win TV. I'm your host, managing editor, Misha Green, and I am so happy to be with you all this Friday as we talk about the 2026 DC primary election, and particularly our primary election voter guide. This is our voter guide broadcast, and it is sponsored by AARP DC, the League of Women Voters DC, and the DC Board of Elections. And we are just so elated because our 2026 DC primary election voter guide really offers a wealth of information that all Washingtonians can use as they dive into this primary election season. We already have our mail-in ballots, and now we are offering folks the tools necessary to ensure that they get out the vote. And so our amazing sponsors, AARPDC, the League of Women Voters DC, and Board of Elections are here to talk with us today, as well as our senior politics writer and education writer, Sam P.K. Collins, who will talk to us a little bit about the work he's been doing, as well as this year's Voters Guide, in addition to the ranked choice voting work that he's been covering. So today we have Joseph Hand, who is Associate Director of AARPDC, and Joseph will be discussing our collaboration on the 2026 voter election guide. We'll dive into the top concerns of older voters and key issues in local races and the new ranked choice voting system, and why this partisan guide matters. And I think that we should really emphasize that. This guide is for everybody who needs to know what's going on in voting here in the District of Columbia. We also have a commercial from AARP, and so that'll be really exciting to check out as well. We'll also have Ann Stauffer, who's co-president of the League of Women Voters DC, who is one of our key partners on the 2026 election voters guide. And we'll discuss why the League sponsored the voter election guide and the challenges of misinformation. Again, the new ranked choice voting system. Try to say that 3 times fast. Ranked choice voting, ranked choice voting, ranked choice voting. I guess I got it. And how voters can navigate this historic election. I normally say this at the very top, but I'm giving my precursor, excuse me, to my furry co-workers, Reina and Bella Noche, who are barking in the background. But we'll also be covering what resources are available for everyone, for first-time voters to seasoned voters ahead of this June 16 primary. And before we jump in, we also have to talk about the most recent copy of the Washington Informer, which of course includes our DC primary election voter guide, but also a wealth of information. Oh my gosh, so many great stories. As you see on the front, we talk about the impending departure of Dr. Louis D. Farabee, who is Chancellor of DC Public Schools. He is headed to another organization, and we hear from the mayor, people in the community, educators, DCPS alumni, who are talking about Farabee's contributions in his time from the COVID-19 pandemic to today. We also hear, and I should also note, that's also by Sam P.K. Collins, who we'll hear from later on. Sam also wrote about ranked choice voting, which I talked to you about a little bit earlier. And then we have a piece about entrepreneurship avenues, and that is by our content editor, Jada Ingleton. as well as a health and environmental story by our contributing writer, Maya Trujillo, who talks about animal welfare and how local farms can do their part to not only ensure that the animals are well taken care of, but also that our air is clean based on how animals and livestock in general are cared for. And so it's a great, great addition. You don't want to miss all of the news that you can use. It's those are just the front page stories. There's so much more. And I think without further ado, it's time to jump into this voter guide broadcast. Now, as I always say, sharing is caring. So make sure you share this with your village. You can do so on Facebook, X, IG, Threads, and all LinkedIn, YouTube, all of the places. And of course, go to WashingtonInformer.com for all of the updated news that you can use. So without further ado, let's jump in after this short commercial.
Today, Washington decides its future. Public safety, housing, education, representation. These aren't just headlines, they're our lives. And at moments like this, you need more than sound bites. You need the full story. Read, watch, subscribe, support the Washington Informer.
Elections are coming up. If you want to make sure your voice is heard, it's important to know when, where, and how to vote. Stay informed so you can make your voice heard in the upcoming election.
Hello, Joseph Hand from AARP. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so thankful for the work that you all do in partnership with the Washington Informer and for all district residents. And so, again, we thank you for carving a little bit of time out with us today. How are you doing, first of all, Joe?
Of course, Misha, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here in the district, and we're excited to talk about voting and make sure folks get out there and make sure their voices are heard this year.
Absolutely. So before we even get into some of the nitty-gritty of the DC primary election, tell us a little bit about the work at AARP DC.
Yeah, AARP DC is the home of 50 plus here in the district. We are an advocacy group. We, we're just down at the Wilson building the other day talking to the council members about priorities of district residents. But we also have a lot of fun activities. We sponsor pickleball tournaments. We have nights at the ballpark. Lots of different things for seniors to get out, get involved, make sure their voices are heard, and really enjoy the district and all that it has to offer for folks 50 plus.
Well, I often see AARP everywhere, and you outlining that just makes me wonder when you all are getting rest at the AARP DC headquarters, because you all are always working.
Yes, we are a small but mighty team here in the district. So
and we certainly appreciate it. But as you said, the focus is for folks 50 plus here in the district, and particularly we are highlighting the work that you're doing for voters 50 plus. And we know that they play a decisive role in district elections as well as elections really nationwide. What are some of the top concerns you're hearing from seasoned Washingtonians this year?
Absolutely. One of the things that we're hearing, it's nothing new and it's nothing specific to the 50-year-old or 50 plus group, but for affordability. The cost of housing is rising, home repairs, utilities, everyday essentials, things are just getting more expensive. Many residents are really worried about being able to stay and live independently in their own homes. We want people to live in be able to live as they choose, as we say here at AARP. So whether that's in your home or with, a family member, we want you to be able to choose where you live and how you want to live. So that's really what we're hearing and from folks, and that are they concerned about. Of course, healthcare remains a major concern, both for the people who are receiving the healthcare, but also for the caretakers and the caregivers who are out there next to them, making sure they get to their doctor's appointments. And one of that is, making sure there's ample transportation. People have, either Metro here, Metro Access, connector cards. There's a lot of different things that ways that people get from one place to another. So those are just kind of the things that we're hearing from folks that are really important to them, especially locally here in the district.
And, first of all, those are hot button issues, and thank you for sharing them, because I'm over here taking notes, noting that we are also highlighting some of those concerns and what folks are doing to address it here at the Washington Informer. So again, thank you for that. Definitely we're keeping a pulse on it. But in terms of the other side, what should our older voters be looking for from the mayor, from the DC Council, from these delegate candidates? There's so many different roles up for grab this year, and folks really don't know why they're important or why they should be voting for these particular people. And so what should they be listening for from these candidates?
Sure, absolutely. So AARP is a nonpartisan, nonprofit. We don't endorse, we don't tell you who to vote for, but we want to make sure you have the information to make an informed vote. That's what we really want to focus on, is making sure that you know where the candidates stand on issues. So for 3 races that we're particularly interested in, which is the U.S. House delegate race, the mayor's election, and the at-large election for a council member, we sent out questionnaires to all 29, all 29 candidates who are on the ballot. So for those 3 races, for both the Democrat, Republican, and the Green Party, there's a total of 29 candidates. We received responses from 27 of them, so we had a great response rate. So basically, we have questions on healthcare, healthcare, transportation, housing, aging in place, and health disparities. Those are the 5 issues that we asked the mayor and council candidates about. And then we asked the House delegate candidates about Social Security and caregiving. So those are some of the issues that we know AARP members here in the district have told us are important to them. So we wanted to go straight to the candidates and ask them what they thought about these different issues. So we provided them the space to answer questions in their own words and tell you exactly how they would face these problems that are, have been long told to us, and people have talked about here in the district that need to be addressed. With both the council seat and the mayor's seat being open, there's lots of people running, and it's kind of hard to cut through the noise of all the TV ads and what's going on. So we encourage you to go to aarp.org/DC votes. That's DC votes. And there you will have links to the 3 races and all the candidates laid out side by side, so you can read through them. Read through, see who you think has the best answers, see who you agree with most, and then go from there. Take that information, take it to the ballot box with you, and make sure your vote is informed and that you can cast your ballot.
Wonderful. And can you repeat that email address? We want to make sure we put it up for our viewers. And
Absolutely.
We'll also link it in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. All of our voter guide information can be found at aarp.org/DC votes. aarp.org/DC votes. So go there, and we have it broken up between races. So all of the House members are together, all the mayoral candidates are together, and all of the at-large candidates are together there. So you can click through and see where everyone stands on the different issues that we've asked them about.
Perfect. And, we know that ranked choice voting is new to the district and for district voters. What was important in terms of that part of this election for AARP to relay to voters 50 plus here in the district?
Absolutely. One of the biggest ways to have your voice heard is to vote. Get out there and vote. So at AARP, we want to make sure you know how to vote. So it's not just knowing what the candidates stand for or where the candidates are on a certain issue. It's actually casting your ballot. How do you get your ballot successfully counted in this process? And with ranked choice voting coming to the district, one of the biggest concerns we heard is just unfamiliarity. Many of our AARP members and older district residents in general, they've been voting the same way for decades. Literally for the past 40 years, they've voted one way, and now all of a sudden it's a totally different way. And while it may look a little similar, there's some mechanics that are just different about it and that folks need to know. So we've been working with the Board of Elections to get out there and really make sure that all of our seniors and all of our 50 plus community have the knowledge and the know-how and have been practicing and can really get in there and confidently make sure that their vote is cast and then counted. One thing we are kind of alerting people to is that if you are going to go vote in person, make sure you leave enough time. We assume that there's going to be long lines and a longer wait than normal, probably just with the unfamiliarity of many people when they get to the ballot box and try to fill out the ballot and make sure that it's cast and counted correctly. So we've been out in the community. We've been meeting, senior centers, community centers all over the place to make sure that folks understand how to correctly make sure their voice is heard and that their ballot is correctly placed.
It's wonderful. And is there any other things that AARP DC is up to leading to the June 16th primary that folks should know about or keep a pulse on ahead of casting their ballots?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm going to say it again, aarp.org/DC votes. Take a look at our voter guide. There's a plethora of information there. We are continuing to stay out in the district. If you're at some of the different forums or mayoral debates, we'll be there handing out information, and we'll have links and QR codes that you can scan right there. That'll take you right to our candidate guide, so you don't even have to type out the DC votes. We will be at various senior centers across the community. So, look for us, check out our website, and we will, really, it's more about providing the information. That's really what we're here to do. We're here to make sure you have the information so you can get out there and confidently cast your ballot and know that it's going to count when it gets processed.
I think that is a mic drop and so important. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you, Misha. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
We so appreciate all you do, and obviously for joining us and for sponsoring this voter guide. It's so important, and so thank you.
We appreciate your partnership.
Take care.
Have a great day.
We appreciate you. Well, if that is not a way to start up a show, I don't know what is. I mean, ensuring that folks 50 plus here in the district know how to get out the vote. So again, thank you to Joanne and AARP DC. And we still have so much more in store for you. We're going to have a brief commercial from the DC Board of Elections and then bring on Ann Stauffer of the League of Women Voters, DC.
What's up, DC? The June primary and special elections are coming. And this year, for the first time, we're using ranked choice voting.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Ranked choice what?
Isn't that where you, rank the candidates on a ballot or something?
That's right. This year, DC voters can rank up to 5 candidates on their ballot. Your first choice doesn't make it, no worries. Your vote moves to the next one.
All right.
Sounds like a win.
Good for DC.
DC, how will you rank your vote in the June 16th primary and special election? Rank it, DC!
Rank it, DC. I love that commercial, and I am so elated to have Ann Stauffer of the League of Women Voters DC here to talk about all the work that they're doing to make sure that folks vote in the upcoming election. Thank you again, Ann, for your sponsorship of our efforts to make sure we get out the vote here at the Washington Informer and all you're doing at the League of Women Voters DC. How are you this Friday?
I'm doing really well, thank you. I mean, the weather's brightened up and we are in voting season, which is, really our one of our main purposes is to make sure everybody can vote and everyone gets out to vote.
Absolutely. I know the League of Women Voters has a long history of promoting civic engagement and voter education. What are you all up to these days, and why was it important for you to partner on the 2026 DC Voters Guide?
Yeah, thanks. So first of all, we really appreciate the Washington Informer is a great partner and a trusted resource in the community, and we're so happy to partner on this voter guide because we really think that voters should be informed and that they should actually cast their vote. Because as we always say, your vote is your power. It's your say in what happens in your community. And so we are doing focused on two things right now. We're doing a lot of education on ranked choice voting, and we are promoting also our voter guide, which is at vote411.org and has answers from all of the candidates. We actually sent questionnaires to all candidates. And so we're really working to make sure that voters in DC are aware of both the new way we get to vote and all who's running and what their positions are.
Well, I think that is such again, important work, but time consuming. And so again, I'm not positive when you're resting, particularly with all of these candidates, but thank you so much for all that you're doing. And Vote 411 is great. I've checked out the website before and today, and absolutely love what you're doing and how engaging it is. Why was Vote 411 an important initiative for the League of Women Voters DC? And what do you hope folks will gain in terms of feeling empowered and confident in going into this election cycle?
Yeah, so Vote 411, I should also say, the League of Women Voters is nonpartisan as well. And so we don't endorse candidates, but we do do advocacy on different issues. And so with Vote 411, it's an important tool. The League for decades has done voter guides, but now we do it all online. And so it's an easy access where you can find out where candidates stand. We have candidates answers questions on their priorities. Should they be elected? What are their main priorities? Protecting DC, what are they going to do to protect DC while we're under kind of, I would say, attack from Congress and others? And what their support is for DC statehood. That is a major issue for the League because we are disenfranchised. We don't have the vote in Congress. And what they are going to do for justice impacted residents, among other questions. And so when you go on to Vote 411, you can see the answers that candidates for all of the races have given if they responded. And then you can also use it as a tool to rank your votes and create a little voter guide, personalized voter guide for yourself. And then you can go and see where your nearest vote center is or your ballot drop box. So it's like a voting toolkit.
Well, voting toolkit is so necessary. There are a lot of questions, obviously, here in DC with ranked choice voting, but even from the federal side, there have been some changes, and people just want to, again, feel confident. And speaking of feeling confident, amid a bit of confusion, this is the first time the district has implemented ranked choice voting with 3 or more candidates. And as we saw in the commercial earlier, there are folks scratching their heads just a bit. But the League of Women Voters DC also has some guidance surrounding ranked choice voting. Tell us a little bit about that and why it's important to know, particularly because we know it might get your vote invalidated if you don't do it correctly.
Well, we're very excited about ranked choice voting, and we're really happy to be able to. We've been out in the community talking to people about how it works. I think it's really important to remember that DC voters voted for this. About 75% of voters voted for ranked choice voting because, and same reason the League supported it is that it provides people with more of a say in the results of an election, right? So with ranked choice voting, you can still vote for your favorite candidate, But then you get to rank some of the others. So if you say, well, if my candidate doesn't get enough votes, I still have a say because my number 2 might win. I don't know about you, but I have in times past in DC voted for a candidate that I knew didn't have a chance, but I really liked. And so people used to say, don't throw away your vote. There is no throwing away your vote anymore, right? You get to say, I'm going to rank up to 5 candidates and have a say in who finally gets elected. It also means that a candidate has to win with over 50% of the vote. So we no longer will have candidates that won with only 30%, meaning 70% didn't want them. So it really, in our view, really gives like more support to the person who finally wins. It also encourages more people to run because there's no longer candidates who say that's hopeless, it's not going to work. And you can see that by we have huge candidate fields in a lot of the races, which is really exciting. So I think it's something that actually once we explain it to people, they really see it. Like ranking your favorite thing 1 to 5, is something we do all day, and people understand. From kids in high school up to seniors. I know AARP and Senior Center, the Board of Elections have been in senior centers explaining it. I think where people might get confused is how they think about how the final count is going to work. But there's a lot of information on the Board of Elections website about how that works. It is, it's a voting software program that other jurisdictions have used. And it just runs through, if your number 1 didn't get enough votes, it's just going to roll over and look at your number 2 and add your vote to the number 2. So I think as obviously change is challenging, but we also, as a district, wanted this change. And I think it's going to be really exciting this election and also going forward.
An exciting new time for the district in general, not just with ranked choice voting, but even with what our leadership will look like. There's a lot of newness coming here, if you will. Why is it important to empower voters, particularly when we think about sort of the historic nature of this election? Why did the League of Women Voters DC feel like it was important to do so this year and always?
Well, always, right? So I think I always think about the fact that DC residents fought really hard to have the right to vote and to have a local government even, right? None of us were alive when, but it was 100 years when 3 men, and they were men, decided everything that happened in the district. So now we have an elected, since home rule in 74, we have an elected local government that makes decisions for us. And so by voting, we actually have a say in who is going to make those decisions for us. And so I really always encourage people not to throw their power away, because if you want to say in how the district is going to take care of schools or public safety or healthcare, parks and rec, summer programs for youth, you want to elect people who you think are going to do the best job at that. And so, and I also remind people, if voting weren't important, people wouldn't have tried and be trying to take it away from you.
Very good point. Very, very good point, Anne. I guess, we're at, as you said, a time where folks are attempting to take the right to vote, to attack the district and in our home rule and other rights that that district voters have. But you also talked about the statehood push. And so I am curious what you're hoping that district voters are paying attention to in this election, particularly as we look at the federal threats, if you will, and or challenges here in the district, as well as the push for statehood.
Well, with statehood, I think we are hoping that voters are very very aware, first of all, that statehood is the solution to the threats that face us. We would not be in this precarious position if we were a state. You know, like if you look at, just for an example, we have National Guard on our streets. And in other states where the National Guard was called out and the states didn't want that to happen, they sued and the National Guard has been pulled back. But we don't have that. There is a lawsuit going, but it's not as immediate, right? Because we don't control our National Guard. We also, have Congress that can overturn our laws. And I think a lot of DC residents are now much more aware of the real risk because now it's happened a couple times recently. So what I would hope voters are looking at is candidates that they think are going to really work to protect DC's home rule, first of all, because we don't want any backsliding, more than we have. And we who are going to advocate for statehood as the ultimate solution to making sure that going forward, when we get statehood, because we will get it, that we actually can control our own destiny.
I love it. I am excited about it. I think, I again, it gives me a lot to work with as managing editor in terms of what we should be keeping a pulse on here at the Washington Informer, and particularly knowing about what the League of Women Voters DC is up to. Any last things you'd like to plug happening with the League of Women Voters DC before the June 16th primary, or even after?
Well, actually, yeah. So, right now it's all about voting season. And I have to plug, first of all, that DC makes it really encourages voting and has really empowered voters across the way. So one of the things we actually do as the league is DC gave the right to our justice impacted neighbors to vote. So we are in the DC jail registering voters. And just yesterday, we mailed information to 3,000 DC voters who are in federal prisons. And so I really want to encourage folks may not know, that, friends and family members who are, justice impacted have the right to vote in DC, and also how they can get that information. So we actually work with the Core Links and True Links system. And anyone who, has family or friends or neighbors who needs that information can would please let them know and have them email us at lwvdc@lwvdc.org, because we really want all DC residents to vote.
Well, empowering all district residents is what we are about at the Washington Informer, what the League of Women Voters DC is about. And I just am so excited about, again, this partnership, and so thankful. You all are watching in real time, the people who have helped make this voter guide that we have for 2026 here at the Washington Informer happen, but also just some of the great work that's happening around the district to ensure that voters in DC can get their vote out and voices heard, all district residents. And so that is really exciting. We thank you, Anne, and the entire League of Women Voters DC team for the wonderful work that you're doing. And, you're no stranger to the show. So we hope, and to the Washington Informer in general. So we hope that the League of Women Voters DC comes back and continues to share the great work that's happening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Misha. We're so grateful for this partnership. And it's really been a wonderful partnership over many years now in many areas. So we are looking forward to continuing it as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic Friday.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, this has been such a great show with amazing information, and it's not over. We are trying to get our writer, Sam P.K. Collins, who actually generated the majority of the questions for the voters guide, as well as has been keeping the biggest pulse here at the Washington Informer on all that's happening with the 2026 election. He's interviewing candidates, he's attending forums, he's going to debates, and even has moderated a few. And so we're thankful for Sam and his work and his dedication to making sure that Washingtonians and really all folks know what's happening here in the district in terms of the 2026 election. I have to say, while we wait for Sam, really, I love this 2026 voter guide. It has all of the information that you all need for ahead of the primary and really just going into voting in the district in general. And so make sure you check it out, as well as, again, this week's paper where Sam talks about ranked choice voting. And we have a part 2 of that next week. And I think Sam P.K. Collins is with us. And so without further ado, let me introduce our fantastic, wonderful, fearless writer, senior local politics and education reporter, Sam P.K. Collins. How are you doing?
Doing well, Misha. How are you?
I am so well. I am thankful for us getting through another week here. Look, as our fellow journalist here in the district, Dominique DeDiva, says, another ghetto week in America.
Oh, yeah, no question.
But it's also been a really wonderful week in terms of news and here at the Washington Informer and getting out information that folks can use. And so I was telling folks I'm very proud of this election guide. I think it has so much great info, but also this week's newspaper is awesome and really taps into some of the issues that district voters are facing, as well as some of the things to navigate in this election process, particularly ranked choice voting. So tell us what you've been up to. I can attest you've barely been getting rest this election season, but we've needed it. Tell us some of what you've been up to this week and in general.
No question. So happy to be here, first of all. In terms of this week's issue, my first of 2 ranked choice voting articles came out, and ranked choice voting, for those who don't know, it's a new system that will be coming to DC on June 16th. You get to rank up to 5 candidates based on your preferences, and the goal actually is to ensure that the winner gets more than 50% of the vote. And oftentimes that means going through more than one round if during the first round somebody doesn't get that 50% threshold. Anyway, the Board of Elections has been hard at work conducting events, doing demonstrations, them in addition to other organizations. At the very same time, there's concern that voters, super voters at that, and seniors in particular, will be left out because they incorrectly fill out the ballots, and there's just other concerns about outreach and concerns about how that would dictate the results of the election. So as my article outlined, there were voters actually. Sandra Seegers of Ward 8 in particular, she said she was not going to participate in ranked choice voting. She's opting instead to do one candidate per race. And that's been the preference. She's been encouraging that, as well as other people. At the very same time, like I said, the Board of Elections has been hard at work all across the city, doubling back at times, and even opening the door for people to request visits to their ANC meetings and other forums where they get to educate people about ranked choice voting. But one point I do want to add is that the education campaign has been for less than a year. It kicked off in January, whereas New York City's took place over the course of 2 years, from what I read at least, although there has been some contention around that.
And, I know it's been fervent despite the potential limited, time for folks to kind of adjust to it. But, again, I know that there are so many people, like you said, from the folks you've talked to in your story, preaching different ways on how to navigate this process. And yet, we just heard from Ann Stauffer of the League of Women Voters DC. You've talked about it, that it was in order to empower not only district voters, but candidates. We see this as a huge, I guess, I won't say race, but candidate field. There are also a lot of races, but tons of
Definitely.
candidates. And, do you think that that has something to do with ranked choice voting? Will we see a difference in how votes turn out because of ranked choice voting? And do you think that it'll give folks maybe a more of a push to run for local office?
All great questions. I'll start off by acknowledging Damon Jones. He's a returning citizen who supported Initiative 83, which brought ranked choice voting to fruition. He said, going out and about to forums, and you can read this in my story, he said that there were candidates who were paying more attention to issues, the bread and butter issues. They seemed a bit more fervent, a bit more anxious, a bit more enthusiastic about reaching out to voters. And he credited that to ranked choice voting, in order for them to get that threshold. In addition to that, we've been seeing a lot more collaboration. In some cases, endorsements from candidates to other candidates, and also cross endorsements where both candidates, two or more candidates, has put out joint statements in support of one another. The first candidates to do that were in Ward 1, Miguel Duramo Trindade and Rashida Brown. Following up from that was the independent special at-large race with Dr. Jacques Patterson and interim at-large council member Donnie Crawford. And more recently, we have seen a lot of endorsements across the Democratic at-large field. Most recently, Oye Owalewa, he endorsed Kevin Chavis, Fred Hill, Deanna Forrester, as well as Candace Tiana Nelson. And before that, we saw Lisa Raymond and Greg Jackson stand up for Candace Tiana Nelson. Now, as my upcoming story will say, Candace Tiana Nelson, she did not explicitly endorse anybody, although people have endorsed her. And even more recently, she has put out public statements standing on her 20 years of service, and alluding to how she can stand on her record and her record alone. So we're seeing, again, these are unfamiliar waters. We see candidates testing those waters by collaborating. But my understanding is that across endorsement, we see that in a joint statement. So in cases where people are not making joint statements, those are not cross endorsements. But when you see people making endorsements, then you can call those endorsements. But I think all in all, ranked choice voting is pretty interesting in the sense that we see candidates and residents alike being more cognizant of their similarities versus their differences. Now, the execution part, that is yet to be seen. We'll see between June 16th and June 26th what happens. But again, there is some concern about how votes will be counted, or if they will be counted at all.
And, I know you also, first of all, I want to thank you publicly and on the record
Yes, sir.
for generating the questions for the voter's guide. We thank you for that. And you've been very critical in other forums and debates and things just happening here in the district, and keeping a pulse on that from an informer perspective as well as moderating. Tell us some of the issues that voters care about, why you generated the questions you did, and why they truly are important to the future of the district.
Right. So just to paint the overall framework, we got the mayoral election, of course, and we got the down ballot races. It's coming at a time with a lot of friction federally. It's a precarious time for the district budget wise, with this $1.1 billion shortfall that the council is currently trying to close. And again, with the federal intrusion, you have two camps. One camp, you have your longtime DC politicos. They might have either worked in the executive, they might have worked in council offices, things of that nature, and they have more institutional experience. They are the ones who are touting that experience as being pivotal in keeping DC in the right direction and away from federal interference. And then you have another camp, people who have deemed themselves more progressive, more outside of the box, who are looking at this moment as a time to strike while the iron's hot, so to speak, in terms of just changing the paradigm. So these elections, these races are a test of how far left is DC going to go versus just staying the course and maintaining moderation. And DC is a pretty moderate city in some respects. You know, that's why, despite the apprehensions and I guess the pushback against Mayor Bowser, she's been able to win re-election twice to become a three-term mayor. But when it comes to the mayoral election itself, we have two camps primarily. Of course, shout out to the other candidates, you know, the Vincent Oranges, Rennie Simpavs, Gary Goodweathers, and the like. But we also have as the front runners, the ones who raised the most money, who received the most matching funds, DC Council Member Janice Lewis George and former Council Member Kenyon McDuffie. They have gone toe to toe in terms of public safety, how to respond to the curfew, with McDuffie earlier this week calling on his competitor to vote in approval of the emergency youth curfew. Of the issues of note has become housing, right? So some contention around how much housing can each of them pledge to produce within their mayoralty if elected. Janice Lewis George, she has, from what I recall, 75,000 units. That is her, you know, that's her vision. Whereas McDuffie's is about a less than a fifth of that. You know, and again, you know, it's also it's the question around having a big vision versus what is feasible. And McDuffie is on the side of what's feasible. He's talking language that alludes to, you know, his moderation, whereas Councilmember Lewis George is positioning herself as a candidate who will push back against the Trump administration, who wants to do things for the people, regardless of what it takes. And that itself has caused contention. Recent polling has come out that shows, you know, in if the election were to happen tomorrow, and of course, the sample size from what I saw was a few hundred, so I can't quite say that it's indicative of what will happen. You also got the Bradley effect, if that's what it called. But at the very same time, my understanding is that it's pretty much split along the lines of, you know, DC residents who've been here their whole life versus those who have recently moved, those who've recently moved, and the younger cohort of voters being more supportive of Louis George, whereas the longtime DC voters, DC residents, are more in support of Kenyon McDuffie. And we see Kenyon McDuffie gaining an advantage in a ranked choice voting situation with the second vote, whereas on the first vote, Janice Lewis George has a narrow lead. And this was a poll that was conducted by CityCast. So after that poll came out, the Lewis George camp, they released another poll that was conducted by a private firm that showed Janice Lewis George having a significant lead. Although there have been questions, and this is not me asking the questions, there have been questions among community members about the metrics of the study, who conducted it, things of that nature, you know, which is pretty understandable. But across the board, you know, we have just these varying ideologies. And even, you know, when it comes to the congressional races, while, you know, the council colleagues, Robert White and Brooke Pinto, have been, you know, going back and forth with their quips, we have Kenny Zelezny, a federal government a mainstay, you know, somebody with experience, somebody who has, you know, stumped and ran party operations during the Kamala Harris campaign. You know, she's showing, you know, some progress in that respect in terms of just gaining attention among voters. There's one Ward 5 voter in particular who stood up in support of Ms. Zelezny in recent weeks. We also have Trent Holbrook, who is really zeroing in on his experience as recently as today as a member of the Holmes Congressional Office, and he is positioning himself as somebody who can be pretty much, you know, remain in the course. And then we also have Mr. Yaxo, who's talking about, you know, holding back taxes. That's sort of, similar to what Green Party candidate Keemon Freeman is talking about. And in addition to that, I'm pretty sure there's somebody I'm forgetting, and I hope that they'll forgive me. I think we hit them all.
I think you did.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely did. Wow, that's awesome.
Well,
yeah.
it's a very, very crowded, a bit contentious, and we know new for the district, this race with the ranked choice voting. But Sam, who I call Professor Everybody, he is a professor, but I say because of the education that he offers to our readers weekly and really daily through his reporting. I cannot thank you enough for all that you're doing for this primary election. It is a lot, and I know very time consuming, but as you know, as a native Washingtonian, really, really important for the future of the district. So thank you, Sam, so much for your time, for your dedication and all you do.
Yeah, and thank you for your leadership, Misha.
So appreciate you, and it's an honor every day with this team. Absolutely love you. Oh, y'all, this has been such a great show, and I hate to say goodbye. But you won't see my face again, at least until maybe next week at some point, because we still have more information. We're showing a great informative training video about ranked choice voting from the DC Board of Elections, another partner for the DC Voter Guide. And so we thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a very busy month of May. We've highlighted older Americans, Mother's Day, mental health awareness. And guess where we're moving into? It's June, which is Black Music Month. Y'all don't need to hear me sing, but just know that the song is in my head. And guess what? We're kicking it off this weekend at the Roots Picnic in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where many DC acts will be highlighted, celebrating the 50th anniversary of Go-Go. Wale and the great lyricist that is Black Thought have a freestyle moment coming to us. And then, of course, the headliners, Jay-Z and The Roots and Erykah Badu. So you don't want to miss our reporting on the Roots Picnic, as well as all the great stuff happening in terms of Black music in June. And as always, sharing is caring. Share this stream, and we will see you next week.
Greetings, District of Columbia residents and registered voters. Did you know ranked choice voting is coming to DC? During the November 2024 general election, voters overwhelmingly said yes to I-83, voting in favor of bringing ranked choice voting, or RCV, to DC. The DC Council funded RCV in its FY 2026 budget. DC Board of Elections will now implement RCV for each election we administer, beginning with the June 2026 primary election. RCV applies to every contest with 3 or more candidates, except for political party offices. Specifically, RCV applies to the following contests: President and Vice President of the United States, Mayor, Attorney General, Chairman of the Council, Delegate to the House of Representatives, Members of the Council, Members of the State Board of Education, United States Senator, United States Representative, and Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner. With RCV, voters will be able to rank up to 5 candidates for each contest that contains at least 3 candidates. Therefore, you will give your top candidate your first choice ranking. You then rank 4 additional candidates in that contest. Ranking additional candidates does not hurt your first choice candidate. Please note, you are not required to rank candidates. You may select your top candidate as you have in the past. The goal of RCV is to ensure a candidate receives over 50% of the vote before being declared the winner. Here is how RCV works. Each contest with at least 3 candidates will allow a voter to rank up to 5 candidates, including a write-in candidate. If there are fewer than 5 candidates, a voter may rank as many candidates as there are in that contest. For each contest subject to RCV, rank up to 5 candidates in order of your preference. Do not give the same candidate multiple rankings, and do not give the same ranking to multiple candidates. You can rank as many or as few candidates as you want without exceeding 5 rankings. Therefore, your top candidate receives the first column ranking. You will mark your first choice or top candidate in the first column. You will mark your second choice candidate in the second column and continue the process until you have ranked up to 5 candidates. You will complete this process for each contest that is subject to RCV. Tabulation and determining winners. Once voting concludes, we will look at all column 1 rankings for a contest. If a candidate receives over 50% of the votes, that candidate wins the contest, and we do not review votes in additional columns. If no candidate receives more than 50% of the votes in a contest, we do not declare a winner, and we move to rounds of tabulation. We look at the candidate who received the fewest number of votes. That candidate is removed from future tabulation. Voters who voted for that candidate will no longer have a candidate in the running. Therefore, we look at who those voters selected as their second choice candidate. Those votes for their second choice candidate are distributed among the remaining candidates on the ballot for that contest. We must now determine if a candidate has crossed the 50% threshold. If no candidate has received over 50% of the votes, we must conduct another round of tabulation. The candidate with the fewest votes at this point is removed from the contest and removed from future tabulation. Votes for that newly removed candidate will now have to be redistributed based on the voter's next selected candidate. Whenever your candidate is eliminated, we move to your next ranked candidate. We continue the process of eliminating candidates and redistributing votes until a candidate crosses the 50% threshold. The candidate who crosses the 50% threshold in a contest is declared the winner.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Henderson. How will DCBOE educate the public about RCV?
DCBOE is going to educate the public in a number of different ways. First, we have a lot of information on our website. We also have plenty of informational materials. We have a palm card, we'll have several postcards, we'll have the voter guide, we have FAQs. We also have a lab here at DCBOE headquarters, and individuals can come in and get hands-on practice as far as how to vote a ballot and get answers to any questions they have about tabulation. We also have an app that is available on our website. One thing to note, all of these materials will be available in other languages.
Will there be RCV candidates and non-RCV candidates on the same ballot?
It's a possibility. RCV kicks in whenever you have 3 or more candidates in a particular contest. And so if we have a contest that does not have at least 3 named candidates, that contest will not be subject to RCV. So there is a possibility that we will have RCV and non-RCV voting contests on the same ballot.
Hi, I'm Bert Russ. If I do something to make a contest inactive, will my entire ballot be inactive?
Good question. It is not. Only that particular contest is inactive.
Will election results be posted on election night?
Yes, they will. Voters will be able to go to our website, and we will have all in-person votes and mail ballot votes processed by Election Day available on election night. And we will continue to update the website as votes are processed.
Hi, I'm Michael Johnson. When will the final election results be provided?
We cannot provide final election results until we have all ballots, and we will not have all ballots until 10 days after Election Day. Once we're able to process those ballots, we will be able to certify the election.
And will those final results be posted on the DCBOE website?
Yes, final election results will be available on the DCBOE website.
Hi, I'm Yoenhara Kabeda. What makes a contest inactive?
A contest will become inactive if you give the same ranking to multiple candidates or if you give multiple rankings to the same candidate. The particular contest will only become inactive at the point that you make that mistake.
What happens if I skip a column ranking?
Voters should not skip rankings when they're voting in a particular contest. However, if you skip a column ranking, that is the equivalent of having subsequent rankings move up. So if you skip column 2, that means your column 3 ranking would move up, and it would not in any way jeopardize any of your future votes in that contest.
What about multiple rankings?
You cannot skip multiple or 2 rankings in a row. And so if you skip sequential rankings, your ballot will become invalid at that point. For instance, if you vote for someone in column 1 and then you skip columns 2 and 3 and then you vote for someone in column 4, your ballot will become inactive after that first ranking. To learn more about ranked choice voting, please go to www.dcboe.org or call 202-727-2525.